Ineos have been working night and day behind the scenes, and they do have a plan in place for next season. They're just not letting journalists know too much. They don't want to reveal all. They have transfer targets that have been looked at by the scouts that will later be approved by Ashworth and Wilcox. They have a plan for Ten Hag. They have potential managers that could replace Ten Hag, and that does not include Gareth Southgate. They have a focus on the youth, the under-18s, a plan to bring them through, recruitment to focus on young players, and more. And I want to dive into sort of Ineos's plan from an objective point of view. And I saw this really good thread by CC Transfer 16, which broke down everything going on at United from what is facts. He's not putting agendas in. He's not putting personal opinions in. This is based off information that's come from Romano, Ornstein, information he's received. We're talking the tier one sources of what really is the situation at United based off the factual element, not the, I think, that happening and that happening because I've got an agenda. It was a very, objective analysis of what's going on at United, talking about the player power issue, the dressing room, what does the dressing room really feel about Ten Hag, Ineos's plans and more. So I really wanted to dive into this thread to talk about the information given. So the thread starts off by talking about the players, and they said the feeling within Ineos is that there are very few players considered untouchable, which is good. Some big earners will go, Casemiro, Varane, Martial, and anyone considered unhappy will be allowed to leave if they wish so. Examples could be Rashford, Anthony. Ineos basically saying that nobody's untouchable. Rashford isn't untouchable, Anthony isn't untouchable, Casemiro, Varane, Martial's not untouchable. A lot of the big earners will go. A lot of the players they think that are not good enough will go, or they'll at least try to sell. And any player that's unhappy, aka Sancho was unhappy, can go. Anthony can go, Rashford can go if they're unhappy. They don't want players that are unhappy. They don't want players that are going to cause issues in the dressing room. Anyone can go, no matter who you are. That is sort of Ineos' stance. It was said that Ratcliffe holds a very similar view to us as fans, that for the years the contracts have been ridiculous and player power is too strong. This will change, but it could take a few windows to get rid of everyone. You've got to be realistic. Ratcliffe has the view of we're giving out too many big contracts, too many long big contracts to aging players. And we remember Ratcliffe, when he actually went and saw Man United a year ago before we knew who was going to be the next owner, actually said to Murta that we shouldn't have been giving Casemiro that high wages and that long of a contract at his age, and was critical of that. And Ratcliffe thinks that player power is too strong, and that needs to change. We spoke a lot about player power in my live stream yesterday, and how I think the lack of control Jose was given didn't help, and that sort of allowed player power to be as powerful as it is. They then spoke about Ten Hag and what the players' feeling is around Ten Hag, and they said the players in the whole are still behind Ten Hag, but they're confused, and I think that makes sense. Senior players have tried to speak with Eric Ten Hag about change and setup and feel ignored. Around Christmas, he listened about training, like McTominay alluded to in a post-match interview. There is confusion on the pitch instructions such as press and the triggers. Even set pieces are concerning for players. However, there are enough seniors players capable of sorting it out on the pitch, so they deserve blame for this too. Overall, the players are the main behind Ten Hag, but there are doubts creeping in, which isn't good. And I think, again, very objective, very accurate, same as the information I'm hearing. The majority of the dressing room is behind Ten Hag. They do like Ten Hag, and they don't want him out. But they're confused. They're struggling to understand, because it's been 8-9 months this season and no progress from where we were in September. Still the same mistakes. They're confused. Delot made a point about us conceding so many shots. Delot is behind Ten Hag, but he's probably having a few doubts and confused. Garnacho's probably been our hardest working player this season, but he's been liking tweets. He's probably had a few doubts and confused. But for the main, they're behind Ten Hag. They still want him to succeed, but they're having doubts because they're struggling to understand his instructions, and some of that is on the players. A lot of it is on the players, the silly mistakes, struggling to understand instructions, set piece marking, but there's still things that they're just confused about. What is he trying to do? In terms of staff, it was said that changes are expected. Van der Gaard is expected to depart regardless of what happens to Ten Hag, and so is Benny McCarthy, which Benny McCarthy is an interesting one. I know there's been a few rumours about Van der Gaard, but Benny McCarthy was one that I wasn't sure he would go. Whilst popular, he's no saint, and he hasn't conducted himself in the most professional way, so let's leave that at that, which is what was said about Benny McCarthy. I do think the fact that Van der Gaard is going and Benny McCarthy is going doesn't look good for Ten Hag, because they are his coaches, and that could be an indication of stuff, but we'll talk about that in the live stream. It was also said the scouts at the club feel ignored massively and let down. This has been the case for a long time, which has seen key appointments and not last, which is true. And we spoke about this in a live stream. I did a tweet about this. The scouts at United feel ignored because they suggest all these good players we don't sign them. They say, look, don't spend more than 30 million on Anthony. We go spend 85 million on Anthony. They told us, we shouldn't be going for Anthony. They actually said, don't go for Amrabat. They didn't just, they actually suggested other people and they got ignored, and they don't like that. And that's why the top staff at United leave, because they want a better job. They feel that Ten Hag has overall good suggestions in favour of players he's worked with in the past. Is what they feel like. They've had suggestions. He's gone with Anthony. He's gone with Amrabat. He's gone with Onana, for example. They said that Ineos is keen for a change moving forward, with recruitment becoming in the whole a departmental decision rather than one or two having more or less the whole power. So biggest changes is definitely going to happen in recruitment, the board, the structure, the environment, but Ineos are keen for a change. Now, one thing about recruitment is it depends on the style of play, and that we don't know has been determined because we don't know if Ten Hag's going to be here or not, but also Ineos want to implement their style of play that the coach would play who would replace Ten Hag if he is here next season and ends up being sacked. They said on style of play they don't know what the style of play or profiles to try and recruit for Ten Hag. Ineos are confused. So in the whole, they've been suggesting players they deem, in their opinion, capable of playing for us. Now, moving on to Ten Hag and future plans coming in, Ineos have always had a preference to have their own manager in the job, but they also wanted him to have what they believe is a fair chance to prove he could do that. He is respected and liked by Brailsford, but he has doubts over his communication. So we're saying that Ineos want Ten Hag to succeed because they know the biggest problem at United is the environment, and they know that there's environmental issues at Manchester United. But Ineos have always had a preference to have their own manager in the job. Which is something that is not Ten Hag. Ten Hag was appointed before Ineos. And there's a feeling now that's shifting. David Ornstein and Romano, who were saying just a month ago and 3 weeks ago that it looked like Ten Hag was set to stay and they're planning for Ten Hag next season, are now saying Ineos are open for a change. Ineos are open for a change. Nothing's set in stone. They're changing the stance. He said, and by communication, I think it's about the ability to clearly get his ideas across. This is pretty much key for what Brailsford looks for. Erik Ten Hag has been fantastic with the youth and works well with Fletcher. He fully understands the immense pressure right now. He's involved in pre-season planning and some transfer discussions, more on this later, but that's standard for this time of the year. That was the same with Van Gaal, and then he was sacked. The fact that he's planning pre-season, the fact that he's planning transfers doesn't necessarily mean he'll be here, because Ineos and scouts already are looking at players to play certain ways as well. They said he knows he's got interest from other clubs and he has doubts over his future at United. It looks like there could be changes going on at United. And Ten Hag has doubts. And I think you could see Ten Hag's facial expression after the 2-2 draw. He just knew like that 2-2 draw. Creep is going in. I think if he gets 6th place, Ineos might stay with him. But now we're not in 6th. Now we're, going down. We could finish 8th, 9th, 10th. And that's might be when Ineos go. I do think Ineos sacking and depends on the manager replacements available that would be willing to come to United at the price. He then spoke about future plans, and he said it's expected the new manager will be appointed by Barada and will lead this. City have been good and allowed him to work in a limited capacity, so there's no doubt conversations have begun. Wilcox is all done, but I believe he has a handover to do, which is true. Even though Omar Barada's on gardening leave, City have been pretty you can talk to Man United if you want. Like they've handled it well. Wilcox is all done as well, is what they're saying. We're just waiting for that to be done. Ashworth's obviously going to be the difficult one, but there's a feeling with Murta going that Ineos feel confident they can bring Ashworth in. They said Wilcox will be leading recruitment this summer, and I believe moving forward too. Ashworth will be the main man overseeing everything, but himself would admit there are others better for recruitment, aka Wilcox, which is true. Ashworth oversees things to make sure there's organised structures in place, but there could be someone else coming in and Wilcox doing the further details on recruitment, and Barada sort of doing the planning and the financial aspects of things. Other points that were sort of mentioned in terms of the transfer market is that we will be looking at younger players and exploring the South American market. They did confirm interest in the likes of Branthwaite, Shao Neves, of course, although they said not all of that is realistic because of price. They said FFP will not be as big as issue as expected because there's lots of planned sales and a big wage shift bill going to happen, big wage bill shift expected to happen. But again, what we can do in the summer will depend on sales, and I think sales is probably seen as the most important thing by Ineos. It said that more youth players are expected to be promoted. Those at Ineos have a big emphasis on the youth and success in the youth, and scouts are drawing up targets now for Ashworth and Wilcox to look at as well. So there's lots going on at Manchester United behind the scenes. And he finished it off by then talking about potential replacements for Ten Hag. We know the Southgate rumours are not true. He said, the only way I see him remaining is if the new structure want more time to identify someone, but I understand that's unlikely at the moment. It seems more likely that Ten Hag will go. He said that Potter, Roberto De Zerbi and Amorim, but Amorim's probably going to go to Liverpool, and Alonso, who's not moving, were sort of the names that were targeted. Berardi and Wilcox will have ideas too. I have something concrete on other targets, but I won't speculate for the sake of it, is what he was saying. But again, all this information that has been given here basically checks out with everything we know from tier 1 sources and everything that I've been told from my source about Ineos's plans going forward. It's all quite objective. It's, I think this is a very accurate thread in terms of, what we know so far. We don't know everything. A lot is being kept in secret, but I think in terms of the objectiveness, in terms of the information coming out, I think it's quite accurate that, as far as I'm aware, De Zerbi is seen as Ineos' ideal replacement for Ten Hag. Realistically, that's what I know, but we don't know for sure. Ineos are full of surprises. But anyway, please do that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Thank you for watching. Bye.